Brad, welcome back to
Thank
Mayor's
you.
Monday. Again, you're not a mayor, but we like
No?
to include you because we've got a lot of stuff going on here in Marathon County, especially in the last couple of months. It seems like we've had a lot of things really pop, and the first one being the mining ordinance, which has passed. So just give us an update on where we are with the possibility of metallic mining in the area.
Well, I really don't know. I mean, there hasn't been an application, and there's a lot of talk about, there's going to be an application for the gold mine, and that hasn't happened yet. Nothing might happen for 5 years. Might happen tomorrow. I think that we're now prepared for whatever comes to us, so that we can have a seat at the table in terms of negotiating with the miners with regard to the issues that are available to us, such as property values and dust and noise and road damage and things like that. DNR will be the primary agency dealing with environmental damage, and we'll rely upon them to do that part. But the local impacts, we're well prepared now to negotiate a local agreement with the miners.
And the other thing that still hasn't been settled on all this yet is the bulk sampling
Right.
issue. Where do you see that discussion going, or have those discussions happened yet?
They haven't happened yet. We're no longer in a race to get something passed. Our ordinance is passed. Now we're in a process of establishing the committee, and they'll work on that, work towards that over time.
And again, everything has to be kind of in place by July 1st. Is that correct?
Well, I think we're okay with what we have now. I think we can amend it.
Okay.
So I think that what you're talking about would be an amendment to it, and we're able to update and amend at any time. So
At any
I
time.
think that as long as we got the full ordinance in place, the reason it was such a race was we were gonna have all new county board members. And, we'd have eight people come in with no context at all, and we would have had to go through a whole education process again. So we got it done with the previous county board. Now it's a matter of fine tuning and continue to look at additional issues.
And have you had any discussions yet with Aquila Resources? Because I know that they've been at some of the meetings and they've said things look promising. We can work with this.
I had a meeting with them, and it looked at that. At the beginning, I came to the conclusion that, or as soon as I walked into the room with the conclusion that they were really opposed to our ordinance. But as time evolved and we continued that, no, they said, if you come up with a reasonable ordinance to deal with things you're talking about, we'll support that, and they did. So I was surprised by that. I thought that we were going to be in a fight that would, against a huge corporation with almost unlimited financing, but not at all. The impression I was left with, and what they actually followed through with later, was that they support all of those things. They know that good neighbors are made by good fences. And that if they come in with a well-crafted, fair, local agreement that treats them fair and treats our residents fair, that will be a lot better relationship than if they come into a hostile environment.
Absolutely. So that's one thing that's, I'm sure it's been a big thing that's kind of off of your plate now, at least for the most part,
It
so to
is.
speak.
I wasn't the guy who did the primary work, but people that report to me did the primary work, and I think they're all very relieved. I think they're really proud that they did an excellent job in terms of anticipating issues and coming up with reasonable pathways to represent the local interests in that.
One thing that you just had a meeting on here recently was an amendment possibly to some county ordinances regarding hate crimes, and this is kind of an interesting topic, especially given today's the way things have been today here recently. Talk about what you discussed at that meeting and what you're hoping to accomplish with this.
I'm not a promoter of it, but Yiling Shang, one of our county board members, is a person promoting this, and he knows that there's hate crime enhancers in both federal and state criminal law. And so if you did something and the state could prove, or federal government could prove, it was motivated by racial animus or hate, or it could be hate for, I guess, more than just racial, but mostly it's been used in a racial sense. You would, rather than get so many years penalty, you get more. He wanted to take that down to an ordinance violation, which are not criminally prosecuted. Well, a little different. They're not subject to incarceration, so it would be a fine. So the way it would be is, let's say somebody spray painted "You are a ninny" on your garage door. That would be penalty A, and say $1,000 fine. But if they sprayed it "You are a," and it had to start with N but wasn't ninny, then it'd be $2,000 or $1,500. But really, when the came to the conclusion, proving on an ordinance violation what was in somebody's heart, because most people are not going to actually paint give you a free ticket, was more difficult than it was. The Yiling, in discussion with the district attorney, found that they're not currently using the laws that they have available to them. So he promised the committee that he would work individually with the district attorney to see what the barriers were and maybe just make good use of the current state criminal law to get those hate crime enhancers utilized.
So no real action on this right now at this time?
No, I think we've kind of dropped the idea of doing it on an ordinance basis. I think that it's just too complicated for something that's really not the same in terms of incarceration. So I think that the committee's going to oversee, and Yiling's going to do the legwork in terms of just getting the district attorney and all the people who do prosecutions to realize that those are already out there and that they should be utilized. They're part of Wisconsin law.
So this is something that there's really no need for at the local level right now because it's covered elsewhere.
Right, but local decision makers can implement to different degrees. And what I think the outcome is, let's just remind them that this is important to us.
Absolutely. So that's a good discussion to have in the community, especially given, as diverse as Marathon County is. And we've said it, the largest county, big population area here in America.
Becoming increasingly diverse.
Yeah, we've got to have those conversations at the local level.
Right.
Well, and one other thing that we wanted to bring up here, of course, it's something that everybody's been talking about this summer. Kind of got sidetracked a little bit because Mother Nature had other plans. Uniform addressing.
Right.
Where are we on this? Have we started finally?
I think they're actually going to start next week. It might have started a little bit this week, but you weren't going to do it a week and a half ago. When we had Snowmageddon. So that was just not going to happen. So I'm not exactly sure, but I think they're really starting in earnest on Monday. And you have to be able to put the stake in, and we'll be behind. And it's just what happened. There's just no way you're going to put it in a snowbank. It wouldn't be good for anybody. And we'll hope to catch up, but we'll probably end up behind.
Way behind schedule, probably. I mean, we're talking about 2 or 3 weeks at this point. So, what is there kind of a backup plan?
We have a plan in place. We can live with that. It'd just be slower than we thought. So we just got to get done by the end of the summer, and we still will. Now the question is, do we get all of it done, or do we hold Rib Mountain until next year? Because we still got other issues with Rib Mountain, and that's their last on the list.
Gotcha.
So if we don't get Rib Mountain done this year and we get them done next year, well, we'll still get it done.
We'll still get it done one way or another.
Yeah,
correct?
The rest of the county will get done.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a massive undertaking, and
it is.
To see, you don't plan on a blizzard like that at a time.
It's very
like that,
important to people.
It's
we got people calling in and saying, well, I want to know my number so I can change my letterhead and stuff like that. We can't take 22,000 calls. You got to be patient. Their address changes when we pound the sign in your yard, and we got to move on from that because we've got to manage our own resources too. Just talking to everybody on the phone would delay the project further. So
absolutely.
The other thing that I want to tell you about this is this project communications plan was really benefited by the regional Marathon County libraries in the small towns because they had good they studied it. Their reference librarians studied it. They became quote unquote experts in the subject. They had the materials there, and they served as a really an excellent resource to people who had questions. And people are more likely in Edgar and Athens to go visit their library than to call somebody down in Wausau and try to get that information. They're people they know, a lot of times they're relatives. And so that really helped in our communications plan. And we'll continue. We're going to keep them up to speed as to where we are and how, if we're gaining ground or losing ground.
Yeah, that's just going to be my next question. I mean, those resources will be available throughout the summer.
They will. They're going to get us through the project. We won't let go of them.
Yeah.
We need them.
Absolutely. They're very important resources in those small towns in more ways than one.
Very important resources.
One more thing before we let you go here, Brad. I know there was some discussion on this, I believe it was a little earlier this week, about the North Central Healthcare. You had some consultants that came in and presented plans with North Central Healthcare.
Right. We're talking about a $67 million renovation. And they went through. The real choice comes down to, are you going to spend a lot of money fixing a car that's past its useful life, or are you going to just bite the bullet and do it right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sooner or later, what will happen is you'll put a new heating, cooling system in, and somebody will say, this whole building needs to be renovated, and you'll be tearing out a brand new system. The campus is 50 years old. Most of the stuff is between 50 and 30 years old. It needs to be updated. Nothing needs to be updated more than Mount View windows. You can actually, the other thing is it needs to be remodeled to current expectations. 50 years ago or 30 years ago when Mount View was built, it was fine to have 2 rooms and a shared bathroom. And it's still fine, but it's not desirable. And a lot of people, the people who have choices, the people who actually can pay the bill, have choices, will go elsewhere just because of that need for or desire for privacy and having a private bathroom. So we got to, in order to get up to the current market and to be successful financially and in all ways, we really need that renovation at Mount View.
And I know the consultants came in and that, I'm guessing, was their plan. They said that this all needs to be renovated.
Right. And see, the deal is their renovation plan will result in enough savings and new revenues to service the debt over 20 years. They actually would have renovated the entire campus. Now they're renovating about 3/4 of it, but there wasn't enough money to do all that. 67 still wasn't enough. So we figured out what was most important and did that with it. The county shouldn't have to levy any more taxes to go into North Central Healthcare. It should be more Medicaid dollars, because part of that cost can be allocated against our Medicaid patients, and it should be less staff over time, because adjacencies, and you just spend less time walking all over the place, and we can just become more efficient.
So what's the timeline then on that plan for the next foreseeable future?
The timeline is that we have to get that approved. We're hoping to get that approved next month. If we don't get that approved next month, at least in concept, then it's going to delay the aquatic therapy pool. And that's going to be very upsetting to people who contributed $3.2 million to that project. So we want to get the concept in place. Then they have to get a 3/4 vote to borrow that kind of money. And 3/4 vote counts as no's everybody who's not here. And we're moving into the summer, June, July, and August, where we typically have more people vacationing, and you cannot call in to be counted as a quorum. So it's going to be up to our chair, Kurt Gibbs, as to when he calls that vote. But he's got to do it with an eye towards, this is when we're going to have our high water mark in terms of attendance. Because July, I'm going to tell you, isn't it? Not going to let that vote go to July, because we'll probably have 10 people gone. It's defeated before it even gets launched.
Yeah, that's just one of those things that Kurt's constantly got to manage as the chair. Of course, he was reelected unanimously.
He was reelected unanimously. He's got a 38-person board, 38 leaders. Okay, and so they all got elected to be leaders. Hardly anybody got elected to be followers. So it's like herding cats. Yeah. And so he's got to work his way through a number of issues. It's a difficult job to be the leader of the county board. It's kind of like the physician who leads, who's the medical director of a hospital. You're dealing with people who all have their own ideas, and somehow you have to bring that into a unified context. And even if it doesn't go his way, he has to get a vote and make sure that everybody's well informed.
Anything else that you'd like to add before we let you go today?
I don't think so. I'm just so glad the weather's better.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to 70 degrees.
Absolutely. Should be coming soon.
Should be coming soon, yeah.
Thanks, Brad. We always appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you.